the latest rumors that are coming out, it seems that there is a difference between Marco Rubio. I don't know how much of these rumors they have something to the reality of what's going on, but the rumors saying that the U.S. there is a difference between Rubio and Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth wants to send troops to Iran, and Marco Rubio said, no, this is going to be a long war. These are, these are this current situation in Washington. We don't know if something like this is happening in Washington. And here is what Araghchi, the foreign minister of Iran, said in his interview about the invasion.
Afraid of a U.S. invasion in your country?
No, we are waiting for them.
You are waiting for the U.S. military to invade the ground troops?
Yes.
Yeah, hilarious.
Because we are confident that we can confront them, and that will be a big disaster for them.
So you're saying that Iran is ready and willing to take on the U.S. military if there were to be ground troops?
Well, we were ready for this war even more than the previous war. So you can see, the quality of our missiles, how much they are upgraded after the last war, because we learned lots of lessons. And we are prepared for any other eventuality, even, a ground invasion. So our soldiers are prepared for any scenario. When I said that we are waiting for them, it didn't mean that we are waiting for continuation of the war. No, but we have prepared ourselves to confront with any scenario, with any eventuality, any possibility, and we know that we can handle that.
Are your allies Russia and China helping you?
Well, they are supporting us politically and otherwise.
Yeah, this is what he said. Go ahead.
What I like, Nima, is that ignorant NBC questioner. About the empire? You would doubt what Trump says about the empire's absolutely perfect military?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, they ought to put a picture in the dictionary, for the word dumbfounded. His picture would be, that captures it right in the moment.
Yeah. Carl, how much of what the concept of sending troops to Iran, and they were talking about, Kurdish terrorist group being used to invade Iran, all of that from Iraqi Kurdistan and all of that. How much of what is going on, this sort of, propaganda machine, I would say, because there is something in the mind of the Trump administration that they really feel that they can do something on the ground. What is your understanding of that?
Araghchi's right, I think, essentially, in both the broad concept he suggested, Iran being ready, and also in the specific concept that he suggested, at least indirectly, that they can handle it. Let's take the Kurds first. The Kurds, in my experience, having dealt with them fairly extensively in Operation Provide Comfort, the end of the first Iraq war, if you will, are their own worst enemies, whether they're in northern Iraq, in Iran, in Syria, or in southeastern Turkey. They're their own worst enemies. In this case, were they to join, not only would they meet the helicopters that Russia sent in at the sort of last minute, but expressly for this purpose, and they would meet hell, they would also have Erdogan falling in on their rear to finally finish them off. So you want to invite Erdogan into this conflict in a way that he has thus far indicated he's not interested in. Do that, and make the Kurds anywhere near viable the way you arm them and so forth for exercises in Iran. And then the bigger issue is us. And if you're right about the split, then finally Rubio's right about something. Disaster, absolute disaster. He couldn't find enough amphibious bottoms, Nima, to mount a Marine invasion. That's about the only way we could do it, given the circumstances. And if they were sent, it wouldn't be any more than about 50,000. And I dare say they'd be swallowed up in a very short time. And we would lose all those people, either to prison or death or some combination. Mobilizing the country even we would face real serious consequences domestically. I don't think we could do conscription, that is, have a draft, because lots of people would go to Mexico and Canada. I'm quite sure of that, having been on multiple campuses across the country over the last decade, conducting all volunteer force forum symposia from Ohio State to San Angelo State in Texas to William and Mary to Catholic University back here on the East Coast. We got a real register of how young people feel. Even those who were in ROTC programs at places like Ohio State, where one woman told us, I'm here, I'm sad to say, I'm really not here for my country. I'm here because it's free. And when we polled them whether or not they would serve, it was overwhelmingly no. So that would be a tremendous problem. And even mobilizing, we don't have a mobilization apparatus to include a dependable selective service system. We don't have a capacity to mobilize. And you would have to, Neiman, because we couldn't, even with the Army showing up, and at any given time, about 10 to 20% of the Army is non-deployable for whatever reason. Pregnancy, other reasons like that, they're non-deployable. So you might be able to put enough to last a week or two on the ground in Iran. That is if they didn't get decimated while they were landing. This isn't Desert Shield, Desert Storm. It simply isn't, where we took 6 months to test units, send them through the National Training Center and so forth, if they were reserve units, and tell them they couldn't go if they fail, and tell them they could go if they could. And Georgia had a brigade that failed, and Georgia's politicians were really angry with Powell because he wouldn't send them. We took the brigade from Texas instead because they passed at the National Training Center. So that kind of process just isn't in the works for this country in a way that it could be done in that previous time, Desert Shield, Desert Storm. We don't have the forces anymore, and we don't have the mobilization apparatus. And oh, by the way, the reserves are the most short people components of all our services: hospitals, nurses, doctors, dentists, you name it. We don't have them. It's a joke if you say we're going to go to ground war in Iran. It's a joke that would rebound on a lot of serious casualties almost immediately. So Rubio's right on this one.
Well, let me say, I disagree. I think it would be a great idea as long as, and this is the key caveat, Pete Hegseth is leading the column.
Yeah. with God on his side.
Yeah, no, just a big Target T-shirt on. No, I agree with everything Colonel Wilkerson said. I mean, this is absurd, ridiculous, but it's a sign of our desperation, because the air power thing's not working out too well. When you step back and realize that Iran, in a period of 6 days, has destroyed $5 billion worth of radar systems, completely blinded the United States and Israel. They had these two different types of radar. One was ANTPY and the other was ANFPS. And I mean, one of them cost between 500 million and $1 billion, and the others were $1 billion plus. 5 of them are dead, gone. So we're no longer getting early warning detection. They get about a minute warning. Oops, incoming. They've done that. The Iranians have decimated the U.S. bases, at least 8 of them in the region, as well as gone after CIA infrastructure and offices. So despite all the happy talk, that's that same guy that worked for Zelensky up in Kyiv, that would come out and give the reports about, the Russians, they fired their missiles. We shot down 95% of them. That guy's now working down in the Persian Gulf. He's helping the Pentagon. He's helping Admiral Brad Cooper. Yeah, we decimated them. 90%. Yeah. Then how in the world did they blow up your $1 billion radar? Because we can see it's a drone that did it. In one case, you see the drone comes down, boom. Where was our highly vaunted air defense system? The gaslighting that's going on right now on the part of the Pentagon is, we've seen it before. We saw it in the first Gulf War. We saw it in 2003. and we saw it in Iraq with Operation Iraqi Freedom, and Enduring Freedom and Iraqi, OEF and OIF and EIEIO. So, yeah, this is the delusion is strong right now in Washington.
Yeah. By that, Epic Fury was a great selection of names, and this is going to be an epic, but not in the direction we intended.
Well, actually, with the EF could become Epic Fuck Up.
Yeah, that'd be more appropriate.
But there are people calling Epstein Fury. It's
yeah, that's true too.
Colonel, I think one of the main objectives of this war, if it takes a long time to put an end to it, it would be ammunition, and which is one of the most important. Ammunition is the king of battlefield, as they call it in a war of attrition. And here is what Pete Hegseth said.
Shortage of munitions. Our stockpiles of defensive and offensive weapons allow us to sustain this campaign as long as we need to. Again, our munition status only increases as our advantage increases.
Yeah. Colonel.
It's almost as if, Neiman, that a standard practice, and this includes the recently released job reports, which are now being blown out of the sky, of taking your weakness, focusing on it, and lying about that it is not a weakness. It's incredible the way they do this. I think they must have a gang of people that run around finding all the things that are seriously deficient, militarily, economically, or whatever, and then crafting the words they're going to hurl at the American people and ultimately at the globe that are lies to defeat that deficiency or the criticism that highlights that deficiency. It includes Epstein, of course, in a grand sort of way. But what he's talking about is pure poppycock. We have actually been out in the hustings, if you will, with teams trying to ascertain, and when I say we, it's RTX, it's Lockheed Martin, it's Grumman and others, trying to ascertain what could be done with regard to increasing production of various and sundry very critical items, one of which is Patriot air defense missiles. We have found a mixture of things out there, but one of the things we found is there aren't the facilities to do it. The second thing we found, for example, in Arkansas, was a reluctance to do it because of the tech data packages having such strictures on them in order to keep the proprietary material husbanded by the main contractor, which has become a real practice of the 5 or 6 big ones, RTX, Lockheed, Grumman, and so forth. So it's not a sanguine picture out there, even if we could. And then on top of that problem is the problem of maybe 6 months to a year to increase production, even to what they used to call LRIP, low rate initial production, which is fairly low rate, as the name suggests. And to get to high production would take 18 months to 2 years. And we're talking about serious munitions like Tomahawks and other similar munitions. And we're also talking, I'm told increasingly, and Larry may know more about this than I had a little conversation with Doug about it, Doug McGregor. We're also going through precision-guided munitions so swiftly that we are now dropping iron bombs like we did in Vietnam. This is incredible that we're flying these billion-dollar fleets of aircraft out there like F-35s and so forth, extended range F-15s and such, very expensive aircraft, and dropping iron bombs off of them if it's true. And I don't for a minute suspect that it's not true. We are running out of PGMs, in other words, which is probably the greatest advantage, increasingly becoming less so, but we have over other militaries in the world, is this incredible supply of PGMs, a lot of which are delivered from the pylons on an airplane of some sort or another. If that's true, then we really are in even deep kimchi with regard to this air war wonder that's going to win the conflict for us. I've also understood, and Larry may know more about this than I, that the Iranians learned from the Serbs back when Bill Clinton bombed them for 78 straight days. They have some cardboard cutouts out there. They have silhouettes out there. And that we have pilots from these $1 billion worth of aircraft like F-35s that, oh, by the way, are registering about a 42% operationally ready rate right now, something predicted by everyone criticizing the program all along. They are reporting these back as kills. They're saying, as they did in Serbia, they're saying, I got that one, I got that one, I got that one. Look at the telemetry on my airplane, look at the photos. And what they're killing is cardboard that might have cost $50 for the Iranians to assemble and put up. So a lot of lying going on, Nima. A lot of lying.
Yeah. Larry.
Yeah, it was shades of Vietnam, the body counts that where the Pentagon got invested in putting out a story that it was killing a lot more Vietnamese than was actually the truth. We keep hearing that the B-2 has been used and they've dropped bombs, they've dropped bunker busters in Iran. Well, maybe they have, but what strikes me as odd is, remember after Trump did Operation, Midnight Fury or whatever the hell it was called last June, within 24 hours, we had satellite photographs, courtesy of the administration, saying, look, see, here's what we did. You can see the damage. We're not getting those now. So that's because if we're being effective and having the impact on Iran that we claim, show the photos. We're not seeing that. So it is. I did look up the JDAM production. We probably have. We're not running short of JDAMs. We are running short of THAADs. So the terrain high altitude area defense weapon, which those missiles are produced, 79 of them a year, to the tune of $12 to $13 million a piece. And I guess there was something like a total of nine or 10 units in the world, because they're only able to produce like one, maybe on a good year, two. Iran has already destroyed 3 of them in 1 week. So that's, they're down on that front. So even if they had missiles to shoot, they don't have the actual systems to launch. Again, this we keep mistaking our so-called technological superiority as a guarantee of victory. And I watched with Colonel Wilkerson yesterday. We were with Danny Haiphong, and we saw Pete Hegseth talk about, we got air superiority. We control the skies. And, I thought, well, gee, we controlled the skies over Iraq too. That didn't guarantee victory. We controlled the skies over Afghanistan for 20 years, for heaven's sake. How'd that turn out? So, just having, quote, air supremacy doesn't mean a thing unless you're going to put troops on the ground. And as Colonel Wilkerson so accurately described it, we don't have the manpower. We don't have the logistics train. Hell, how would you even get them in place to go into the country? Because this is no longer, 80 years ago in World War II on the eve of D-Day, where we could assemble troops in areas without the Germans being able to know exactly where we were and what we were doing, because you didn't have the sophisticated ISR. Now, in the age of sophisticated ISR, you can't hide that. It's impossible. So the administration is going to be struggling, probably by the end of next week, because they will be depleted of Patriot missile battery, or the Patriot missiles, the PAC-3s. It looks like, in fact, they're already starting to go back to the old PAC-2 because they don't have any more PAC-3s. So there are shortages that will emerge in certain areas, and then you get the let's call it the operational wear and tear. If you got these planes taking off and flying every day and doing a mission turnaround, air refueling, at some point you're going to have accidents, and you're just also going to have equipment failure. It's inevitable.
Yeah. And just to add to that, Nima, what I'm hearing maybe not accurate, but what I'm hearing, and it comes from reasonably reliable sources, is that increasingly we are unable to deliver the ordnance from wing pylons except at distance. And so if you're going to deliver it at distance to minimize your exposure to whatever the Iranians might have, and the F-15s would not indicate that it's minimal, the destruction of the F-15s, you're not going to hit your target much of the time, even though the JDAM might make the iron bomb a precision guided munition ostensibly. We found this out in supporting the Saudis in the Yemen war, because the Saudi pilots were such brave people, they often would release them a little bit early, if you will. And what happens then is you have a dumb bomb at the end of trajectory, and you bomb hospitals and children's schools and buses with 48 kids on board and things like that, and leave the Raytheon insignia in the bus. So that's a problem. And then on top of that, I'm hearing also that we are, as Larry said, we're running out of these critical munitions that are going to essentially allow what is increasingly happening already just from the attrition rate, more and more Iranian missiles of any category. And they haven't even used, I don't think, their very best yet, on Israel. There's a reason old Bibi is flying around more than a flight steward or a flight attendant on a major airline. He doesn't want to be killed. And that's a very distinct possibility. They've already targeted a couple of places where they thought he was and completely destroyed him. He wasn't there because he's jonking all over the world. And I think Larry pointed this out on another podcast yesterday, but I'm hearing more and more, and I'm hearing from my British friends, that that was a false flag operation against the British in Cyprus or Greece, southern Greece, wherever it was. And they know that now. Starmer's not making any publication of it or anything, but it was. And so you've got some dissension going on in the British military staff about how to react to that, or whether to react at all. You got Farage headed for Mar-a-Lago to tell Trump, apparently, that he's all for the Mauritian deal with the Chagos Islanders to be allowing of U.S. use of Diego Garcia. And at the same time, you got Starmer saying, well, as long as it's defensive, I'm not for any offensive, but if it's defensive. And now they're using that attack in Cyprus as the reason to call it defensive and allow us to have use of Diego Garcia, which we now need, because we got our facility for vertical tube loading knocked out in Bahrain. This is, it's insanity what we're doing, and we're bringing our allies in and joining the insanity in some cases.